Hello, welcome to ZIM Capture. I'm inventor Dan Zen. And ZIM at zimjs.com is an open source framework to make interactive media on the HTML canvas using JavaScript and Create.js. In this capture, we're going to take a look at hotspots. Now there's a single hotspot class in ZIM, but there's also a hotspots class. So if you just want, it's almost like an image map. If you wanted to click somewhere on the stage, you could just use a hotspot to be able to map out that region. But you can also use a hotspots class to handle a series of these hotspots. And it maps out regions, so you can click on certain areas, but you can also pass to the hotspots class, you can pass any object. So you can say, hey, on this button, or on this circle, or whatever. And so what it allows you to do is from one place control all of the navigation, or indeed any of the interface if you wanted to your application, which may span, many pages. I think in general it keeps things a little bit tidier. All right, so let's take a look at some code now. Here is the last code that we're working on, or the code that we were last working on in a previous capture, and that was to set out pages. So if we take a look at this in a browser, we'll just refresh our memory here. Okay, so we were swiping between pages like so, but we also made it so that we could click on a page. So as we click on that, we go off to the side. Now, rather than put the click event on that ad, which is sort of way up here, and if we had lots of content made, we'd have click events all over the place. So we're not going to do that. We'll take a look at what it did. It said pages.go when we clicked on that. What we can do is add this function, or add this to a hotspot class. So let's do that. We'll just cut this and bring it on down below here. Now often we would separate this out into another JavaScript file that would be the controller file, and we'd be doing this out in the controller. I have some examples around too of a model view controller. You can take a look at the model view controller what is in the advanced series if you want to find out about that. Also, I believe the pages example on the ZIM site does that, but that's pretty old code, come to think of it, but it still does separate it out. All right, so what are we talking about here? Var hotspots. Hotspots is equal to a new zim.hotspots, like so. And inside here, we will take a look at the documentation to see what we shall put there. So here, head on into the docs, dump, and type in hot, enter. Hotspots. So there's the hotspots class, and here's the hotspot class. Just beware there. And we're going to pass in the spots and the locals and mouse down. So let's see, the spots are an array of these things right here. So, and that basically looks like a hotspot. So let me just copy that. I'll copy two of them in there. So the hotspots is an array, or the first thing that we pass in is an array, like so, and it's an array of hotspot objects, like that. So we say what page this is happening on, and it's going to be page, we'll do it on the first page here, so that's page. You can specify a rectangle. Well, we may as well keep that rectangle there. So at position 100, 100, a rectangle of 50 and 50. And we're going to call this function when we press on that. And this function just happens to be zogging hot. Okay, yeah, we'll just leave that then. Our next page, which will also be on page, and you see, isn't this nice? You can specify which page you're wanting this hotspot to appear on. But in this next one here, we're saying instead of passing in a rectangle, we'll pass in, how about the add? So add is what we're replacing here. Where did that go? Right here, add.onClick. Basically, this is replacing that. We're saying when you click on the rectangle of the add, you know, the bounds of that add, then call this function. Now in this function, we're going to just do this right here. Like so. So it looks a touch complicated in here, but it's not too bad. We just got nested brackets, that's all. So we're in an object, and this object is specifying, please call this function that says go to the second page, or go to page 2 to the right. Oh, by the way, in the last one I was having some issues or some problems with what right and what left meant. And it turns out that it was just sort of more of a nomenclature issue. All the workings are just fine. Because we have to pass in the word that we're going to the right here, we want to go to the page on the right-hand side. That's what I thought I had solidified. There's two ways to look at it: which way you're swiping and which side you're going to once you swipe. And I thought, hey, let's just say we're going to the page on the right. I find that easier than trying to figure out I'm swiping left or right. So we want to go to the page to the right. So that's that. In other words, in my documentation, I've tried to change it now. We shouldn't have put whatever we had there before, right, left, because then this right is actually the page on the left. So now I've adjusted the documentation to say, imagine that the pages are to the left, to the right. So in other words, the page to the left is back. That's why it's first. First one is back. We didn't have to do it that way, but it just, you know, that's a page on the left. It's back. And then if we want to go to the right, this is to the right of the page on the left. You know what I mean? So this is back. This is forward. This is up, and this is down. So those are those pages. So it's not the swiping direction. It's actually opposite to the swiping direction. So I've tried to clear this up with a little bit of nomenclature here in the comments, and that will be launched in the next version of ZIM, the updates to that. Okay, but structurally or functionally, it's all fine. We're good, which is nice. So we want to go to the page on the right, or imagining that it is to the right. Of course, it's ethereally actually nowhere until we say where it is, and that's what we're specifying. Okay, so we save this up and let's see if it works. Oh, we no longer need the click. Just comment that out. And, not refresh the documentation, refresh here. So if I refresh here, there should be a hotspot somewhere, 100, 100. Look at that. We seem to be rolling over something there, aren't we? So if I press that, Control-Shift-K, it now says hot. Oh, now I have to find it again. It's gotten scaled. Not sure where it is. One neat thing about hotspots, if we wanted to, oh, there it is. I saw it. Hit it. There. Okay. Yeah. I press and it says hot again. Okay. One thing, if we want, we can turn all those invisible rectangles on. So there's a way that we can set those hotspots to show up. But, oh, and here, look, this one also has a cursor. Now that could have been the leftover cursor from before, but it's still working. Isn't that wonderful? Still working. So when we click on that rectangle, still working. Let's just check the cursor. Up here, we had left the cursor in saying add.cursor, but the hotspot should add its own cursor by default. So now we don't have a cursor there, and we sit in here and we refresh. What were we checking? Yes, there it is. So the hotspot on this add comes with the cursor, and there we are. It's activating. Now, the nice thing about this is we're using the same pages go function to handle both the swipe and a click, say on an arrow or something like that. Quite common. And because of that, we can use the pages, an event from the pages.on. I believe it's just called pages.onPage, comma function. And if we want, we can collect information about that. And what this will do is it will tell us that we're going to the next page. So in here, we might do something special. We might start an animation, or we might keep a score, or who knows what. But they've just gone to a next page. For now, we'll zog on next page, like so. All right, I believe there's a transition finished as well, or something like that, an event. You can read about it in the pages. Documentation. There's also an event that triggers when the transition is finished getting to that page, because sometimes you might want to wait until any transition has finished before you do something. So let's see if this zogs once we get to the next page here. So I click on next page already, so that is that what it was? That's what I zogged. Yeah, should we just have a look for that transition event just to see if that works? So events, we've gone into the documentation. Events dispatches a page event. Pages dispatches a swipe. Pages also dispatches a page transitioned event. So if we copy that, and by the way, the event object also, like there's an e.target.page, e.target.lastpage. Oh, e.target is the pages object. And you can ask for what page it is and what the last page was and what direction you went, so you can get extra information as well. Okay. And so what that means is you can, with one event here, set up a lookup table, case statement, or what have you, to find out which page you've just arrived at, and do various things all within this one page event. But let's try the page transitioned, and this should now delay and say that we're on the next page after the transition's finished. So we refresh here, and I press on next page. So refresh here, and I press on next page. Isn't that cool? I'll swipe back. Very nice. And that is HotSpots. Now, we sort of jumped in at kind of a complex stage where we had, a layout going and pages going and all that kind of stuff. Hotspot, you can use it just on any normal page if you want. You can have a single hotspot. When you have a single hotspot, you don't pass in an object like this. You just pass in these properties. So it looks basically just like that. You say, hey, what's the rectangle? And that's nice to have that, so that you can do like an image map. If you had a big picture and several regions on the picture that you wanted to be interactive, then you can just add rectangles to that. You can make a hotspot for this place, a hotspot for that place, a hotspot for that place. Shall we just quickly show how to see the hotspots? Here's, that's pages. I need to go to the documentation. Documentation, those were events. Properties, here are the methods. What's this the documentation for, though? Oh, that's for pages. I want the documentation for hotspots. Somehow I got to pages. And there it is, show. So a show method and a hide method. You can also, after the fact, add hotspots or remove certain hotspots, etc. So now back in our code here, if we just, once we made our hotspots, we can say hotspots.show. Now the hotspots.show will only show the region ones. It won't bother showing the ones for on the ad, for instance, and stuff like that. So now we should see the region up here, right? That region show up when we refresh. And there it is. It's just a little sort of grayed rectangular region right there that's showing us our hotspots. Well, that's great. I'm inventor Dan Zen here at ZIM with the ZIM Capture, zimjs.com. Have a great day. We'll be taking a look at a few more advanced captures, and of course you can take a look at previous captures to find out how we did that layout and how we did the grids and the guides and all that kind of stuff. Excellent. Have a super day. Ciao.